Ready?
Go!
Sit.
Go!
Welcome back to another episode of I'm New to This, the podcast. This is Adrienne. This is Kelsey. This is actually Ayden's speech therapist here at Pediatric Therapy in Cary, North Carolina. If you want, you can just introduce yourself. What you do.
Yeah, so I'm Kelsey. I'm Ayden's speech therapist. I've been a speech therapist for about 9 months. I'm just kind of getting my feet wet, but I'm loving it. Ayden's so sweet. He's the best.
So what got you to choose like therapy in general and then specifically speech therapy?
Yeah, so I always knew from a young age that I wanted to help people.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of always started out like babysitting and things, and so I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't quite know what field I wanted to do. So I really, in high school, liked sciences, and so my mom is a nurse, and she had me shadow occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech, and radiology.
Oh, wow.
And I really just connected with the speech therapist. I feel like I chat a bunch and I talk a lot, and so helping somebody else talk and use their words really resonated with me. And there's so much more to just speech that I didn't even realize when I observed.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do like feeding and cognition and speech sounds, all this crazy stuff that kind of pairs well with the sciences and the helping people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I got into speech. But yeah.
Yeah, I was telling people that the reason why I wanted to start this awareness series is because you don't know about this stuff until it happens to you or whatever. I had heard about speech therapy, physical therapy. I had never heard about occupational or feeding until Ayden did physical, and then I heard about occupational because we just did the evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had never heard about feeding until Morgan came to our school.
Yeah.
But stuff like this, you don't hear about it unless you had a mom in nursing and then she had you shadow because she saw that in you and stuff. But other than that, a lot of the time, I feel like a lot of parents don't know about it, or they're scared to get their child evaluated and stuff like that. So that's why I was like, let me start an awareness.
I love it.
People,
yes, you're so right.
If people will let me interview them, I want people to know that it's okay to get the eval done. And sometimes if you jump ahead of it, you can correct it.
Right, get the help you need early on, and then it's so much easier as to if you're older.
So what age range do you work with?
Mm-hmm. So right now, I have a lot of early intervention kiddos. So that's at about 1 year to toddlers, and so that I'm working on a lot of language with. But then I have a lot of articulation kids, so I work with speech sounds, maybe they can't say their R, and so they range more to 4 to 9 is my oldest. And so that's about my range, probably 1 to 9 right now.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a fun little group.
Is articulation lisp too?
Yes,
okay.
It can be. Mm-hmm.
I think Ayden has it.
Well, it can be normal at 2.
Yeah.
When you get older.
I was listening to him the other day and I was like, oh, I think he got a lisp. But I know he might grow out of it. Mm-hmm. But if he doesn't, we'll be back.
Yeah.
So when you went to college, did you just major in bio, or did you specifically go forward with?
Mm-hmm. So you can do it 2 different ways. I got my major in communication sciences and disorders, which is kind of the prereq to the grad school program. So I did that, and I minored in special education and psychology, which paired nicely. The special education really helped me kind of understand things about schools and that type of thing. And then so in graduate school, that was just 2 years of speech language pathology, and so they train you child all the way up to geriatric. So I could do adults, but it's normally just a preference. Normally you go in kind of knowing I either want kids or I want adults. But yeah.
Okay, that's kind of how it is in culinary school. You either want to do savory or sweet, and then you pick a path and then you kind of go down it. Is this your first speech job?
It is my first big girl job.
Really? Ayden loves you.
Aww.
And so that's what made me comfortable. The last speech therapist we went to, he was not feeling her. And I'm not the type of parent to force. Mm-hmm. So I immediately started looking for somebody else. And I think, I can't remember if we got referred by somebody else that we had called, because everybody has a wait list or whatever. But I wanted to find y'all, and I was like, he was so comfortable the first day. Like, even me doing the eval, and we was sitting in the room with you, and he was just like, yeah. Like, going, and I was like, this is gonna work. Because I already knew he needed it. Right. It was just a matter of finding somebody else. So, like, as far as, like, well, I guess you can tell a little bit of, like, Ayden's path so far, Ayden's journey through speech therapy.
Okay, yeah. So I think I started seeing Ayden in like June of 2023, July, that area. And so I know he had a lot of ear infections, right? And so when I saw him for his initial eval, I gave him the diagnosis of mixed receptive expressive language disorder, which just means receptive is understanding, so like vocabulary, following directions, and expressive is how we communicate those things. So like our words, some people use gestures, eye contact, there's different ways to express, but for Ayden it's with his words. And so at the time I don't think he was putting 2 words together consistently, and at 2 it's kind of a big milestone, is you want to put them 2 words together. And so that's what we kind of worked on a lot in therapy. We did a lot of, I would model words, and I think he got his tubes out in the middle of therapy, and that's when things started flying. Like he started doing so well. But I did a lot of modeling. I'd kind of withhold some things, have him put 2 words together, and he was able to do that pretty quickly. And so at this point, he doesn't still have the expressive language disorder. We're just working on the receptive part, just following directions, being able to locate items, that type of thing.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, he only had like 1 ear infection, and it happened to be when we went to get his ears checked for the tubal ligation. And so of course they were like, yeah, he needs them. I already knew he did because I could tell he couldn't hear, and his doctor was concerned too. So that's how we wound up going forward with just trying to get his ears checked and stuff like that. But Ayden too, when he gets sick, he doesn't get like weird. Like he's not cranky. Yeah. He's just kind of whatever. So he might have had ear infections before, but I could tell he couldn't hear because before we brought him here, he wasn't talking at all. He would say like little things here and there, but like all the other kids were saying mommy and daddy and stuff, and he was just like, So that's why when I first brought him here, I was like, mix in some sign language, because he knew some sign language when we came. But it's just weird, I guess, like trying to figure that whole thing out. How would you suggest, because for us, like I said, we got a referral from a doctor to one place. We actually got a referral from a doctor to UNC. Okay. And their wait list, they literally probably called me 3 months ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's how long their wait list was. We got in for physical therapy pretty quick, but speech, the wait list was ridiculous. And so for me, it was just about calling around, trying to find somebody that would take insurance and Medicare and stuff like that. But for you, like I know y'all go out, because this place is newer, y'all go out to different schools and stuff like that. What would you tell a parent that is like thinking that their child may need speech therapy?
Yeah, I would just say go ahead and try to get an evaluation done. I think the more proactive you can be, the better. You don't ever want to say, something might be wrong, wait around for it, and then it's gotten worse and worse, and the delay has gotten more and more months behind where we could have caught up. The worst case scenario, you come in and we say, hey, your child's, developing fine and you don't need it, or, they could need it and go ahead and get the help they need. So I would just either way, like, go in, if that makes sense. Find a place that takes your insurance is always good. We have lots of availability. but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like at school, when I realized, like, especially when y'all came in, there was a lot of kids that I knew probably needed, like, speech therapy. It's just, like you said, enunciation and, like, 2-year-olds, like, still mumbling and stuff like that. And I know a lot of the parents, I could tell that they were, like, iffy. Sometimes I feel like they feel like if they have to take their child to a therapy, there's something wrong with them. And I'm like, maybe in that moment it is mentally, to you, it is something wrong, but we're trying to fix it,
Right, exactly. Well, I feel like the wait and see approach has been pushed hard by pediatricians, and it's like just now starting to flip over to be more proactive. But I've had a lot of parents tell me, like my doctor told me to wait and see until 2.5 or to 3, so I've been seeing some of that.
That's crazy. crazy because I love Ayden's doctor, but I guess now they do, and I don't know because Ayden's my first, but they do like the evals at like whatever months every time they go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, well, you know, he's not saying a lot of these things like the eval you did. They basically do like a little piece of that in the grand scheme of things. And she was like, she basically left it up to me. And I was like, yeah, let's do all the evals. We did the eval for speech. Like I said, we also did the eval for occupational therapy, but he didn't need that. But it's just like, I can't believe that there's some doctors out there telling them to wait.
It's kind of old school medicine approach.
Yeah, I would think that by now, well, I guess not. Because when you think about it, doctors, by the time they actually get into their profession, they're a lot older. So it's still the older generations that are doctors now.
Yes, exactly.
I've been running into a lot of like PAs though that are like my age.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that works. So what are the types of like strategies you use for speech therapy in general?
Yeah. So one of them has a fancy term, auditory bombardment. It just means exposing the child to one word very frequently, like in a session or throughout the day. So maybe if I'm doing in, like we could put blocks in, I'd say it kind of over and over, or then I might change to another activity and do pop the pig, and we put the burgers in. So just kind of the more exposure the kiddo can get to the word, the more likely they're going to produce it. And so I'll do that, and then I'll do modeling, and we call it with a sing-song voice, almost like Miss Rachel. For some reason, singing really connects with kiddos and like the intonation and pitch, so I'll do that a lot. I did that a lot with Ayden, and I feel like that helped him get his words out too, especially putting the two words together. Another thing I like to do is to give choices. So I always want the kid to feel like they're in charge of therapy and they get to choose, you know, what they want to play with and things. So I might be like, okay, do you want Pop the Pig or do you want blocks? And my goal there is, first of all, to expose them to the vocabulary, so the receptive language, but also the expressive. Somehow they need to tell me, either with their words, with pointing, with trying to say the word, eye contact, which one they want to do. So I always tell parents to try to do that. It just gives the kid this sense of control, which most kids want. Gotcha. So yeah, those are probably my big three.
Gotcha. Do you feel that like all speech therapists kind of do what works for them, I guess?
Yeah, I feel like we have a pretty, like, most of us have a pretty similar approach. Like, we'll probably do most of those things for early intervention. Withholding is something that we'll sometimes try and can sometimes be, it just depends on the client. But there's a strategy where you can withhold a desired object and try to have them say what you're wanting them to say. There's kind of a fine line between you don't want to make them too mad and disrupt your rapport you've just built with them by withholding what they want. So that one can kind of be iffy. So some therapists might do it, some therapists might not. Just depends on the kiddo. But otherwise, I feel like we kind of all train to do some of the same things.
Since you work with like younger kids, like I know you said 1 to 9, do you think some of the things that you do is also based off like the amount of attention they're able to pay to activities? Yes, for sure. I feel like a lot of my younger kiddos, we have to take breaks. And so I kind of learn them as the time goes. A lot of times, like, we'll have song breaks. Sometimes Ayden likes his song breaks. Sometimes as they'll get older, I'll set a timer, and so they can kind of understand, okay, my fun time is up, it's time to work. But a lot of movement breaks. Some of them will, like, close their eyes and spin around and run to a wall. Or we'll just play for a little bit, and then we'll do that. But I really like to incorporate movement breaks and things to kind of get our attention back. That tends to help. But yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I know, like I said, my only example of it is Ayden, and going through it with you now, and just knowing at home when we do stuff, I'm like, okay, he's getting tired of this thing. Even trying to, like, I've been trying to incorporate reading books with him. Yeah. Now, it's just hard because he's 2, so you know he's at that age where it's more about the pictures than the words, and you can't read fast enough before he's like turn the page. I'm like, wait, I'm not finished reading it. Okay, just go. Yeah. So I just started doing like naming the characters on the page. That's perfect. That's a lot of the time what we'll do too. Or sometimes we'll
get wordless books, and so without the things, and we'll just label like verbs, nouns, just common things, or like if it's a pig, like oink 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 pig, I see pig, and like turn the page. Almost like these short chunks, I feel like engage the kiddos too.
That makes sense, because he loves, we have like a little small hard book or whatever that just has fruit in it, and he loves that book.
Yeah.
And just because he can like flip through it and just find whatever fruit, and I think he knows most of the fruit in that book, but it's not like you trying to read every page, so he'll just go through it real quick.
Right.
Now we'll sit him down to write, and I think we got like a pack of color markers or whatever, and I let him pick what colors, and once he goes through all of them, he's done. He's like all done. Right. I'm like, okay, well, that works. So you mentioned expressive language and receptive language. I know what that is. Can you explain like the definitions behind both?
Yes. So our receptive language is understanding. So I always, when I tell parents, I'll start off, I'll say receptive is understanding, I'll point to my head. I'll say expressive is expressing, and I'll point out to my mouth. So as far as the head, the understanding, a lot of it can be with developmental vocabulary, so making sure they're knowing vocabulary terms, make sure they're knowing like prepositions, in, out, on, off, core words, more, help. It can also go into following directions, so where is blah blah blah. WH questions, so who, what, where, why, how, all fall into receptive language too. So when they get older, why is this way type of a thing. So that would be receptive side. So basically, to sum it up in one word, understanding.
Right.
And expressive is expressing. And so that's communicating your wants and needs, desires through whatever your mode of communication is. There can be different modes of communication. So, Ayden's is using words. I have some kiddos that use a device to talk, and so they have like an iPad, but they will express that way on their iPad. I have some kids that will do sign language. Some kiddos that aren't quite there to either using an iPad or expressing yet, so they'll kind of make eye contact with me, and I'll know what their cues are as to when they're trying to communicate something. So eye contact, pointing, gesturing is always a good one. But yeah, I feel like that's all the modes of communication as far as the expressive part goes.
Gotcha. Have you ever had any kids that have come in for like an eval and they're like very strong in one side and like very weak in another side, or usually it's like a little balance that they need a little bit of both?
Yes. I've had a lot of kids that like have only been signing or something, and they haven't quite moved on to words, and so we would try to sign like while saying words, and then kind of like slowly take away and see if they can start saying too. So yeah, it is good to have a good balance, but there are some kiddos, especially some kiddos like on the autism spectrum disorder, that will be non-speaking, that need like the device or things to talk for them. It's always like trial and error, what's best for each kid.
Yeah, we because of like the evals that we have to do at the doctor's office every time he goes, I think one of the questions was like, some of those questions are hard, because even when I did the eval with you, it's like you have to really think about what they're doing and answer correctly, because if not, the therapist or the doctor or whatever, they'll start thinking autism. And so that happened with me and the doctor one time. I think one of the questions was like, does he line toys up? And I answered yes, but then when I thought about it, I was like, no, it's not what she's it's not what she's thinking.
Yeah.
Because I've seen kids that line toys up, and that's like their go-to thing to do with toys.
Yes.
With Ayden, it just happened to be like
something he likes to do.
But that's interesting that like I never thought about, like I've seen, I don't know what developmental delay it would be, where I've seen like kids use the iPad to talk or whatever, and then like I said, we was teaching Ayden sign language because he wasn't talking, and I was like, I need to know what you want at this
yes,
point.
And
like,
that's perfect at that time. Yeah.
Do you have to learn sign in school, like when you're going through this, or did you teach yourself?
I am definitely not fluent. I just know like core words and things, especially since the kiddos I'm working with are so young. I did take classes in school. That was kind of part of some of my schooling, which was nice. But there's a lot of resources and websites that I used as well, because I kind of didn't remember everything I learned in school, so I kind of went back and looked. But
I printed out like one of those little simple sign language charts.
Yes.
So we can learn the simple ones, and we got through most of them. Trying to get him to do thank you and please. Mm-hmm. He won't have it. But he says it. So I'm like, okay, we can balance. I feel like sign language is one of those things that is kind of like Spanish was for us growing up. It was like everybody's like, you need to learn Spanish, and I think now it's going to be sign language.
I think so too. Like whenever I have a kid, I already know I'm going to teach like more, help, all done, like milk, just those things, because up until like 1, when they don't start saying their first word, you want to know what they're trying to communicate. So I think you're right in that regard.
Just like being in the culinary field, I know the main thing is like knowing Spanish, because you always wind up working with like Hispanic people or Spanish speaking people. But then I'm thinking about like the world is opening more to like letting people with developmental, issues work more. Yes. So it's like if you have somebody that can't like verbally, that can work but can't like verbally talk or whatever, it would be nice if your coworker can know sign language or something, at least a little bit, not fluent, but like something. I have a friend that she had to learn sign language because she had like vision issues. So I don't know if she still knows it, but yeah, she had to learn it. But outside of like sign language, because I said that's one of the activities that we do at home, what are, I guess, like top 3 activities that you like give to parents to like help with like speech issues?
Yeah, I feel like one would be just playing with them and trying to get joint attention at the early stage. That just means you guys playing together, child looks at you, child looks at toy, child looks back at you. That's one of the first things that can kind of start developing that receptive language when we're little. So I always recommend that. Also, just anything your child likes, try to model language. If they're really into cars, I would say wheels, red car. Literally any activity that your child is interested in, I would go with it, because you want to follow the child's lead. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other ones. I like sensory bins. So that's just like taking a bin, filling it with a random objects, different textures, and then playing with it. It can expose the child to a lot of new vocabulary, so like soft, hard, descriptive terms especially. But that's a good one. It's always fun to play with, and even put animals in there, make animal noises, label animals, that type of thing.
Ayden, he didn't really get into stuff. Like, he's just now getting into, like, he watched a lot of Miss Rachel, and he wouldn't watch anything else. And then, like, now he watches a Little Blippi. He's super into Little Einsteins now.
Oh, yeah.
Which is crazy because you can't get the toys anywhere anymore because they're discontinued. So they don't make the toys and stuff. But he has, like, a red car that he uses for, like, Rocket. But he's not, like most kids now are having like theme parties. He's not into like stuff, so it was hard for me to do that like play with him type thing, right? Because he just plays with like whatever's in his room. So I would try, but it was hard to like try to push like identification of stuff, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Since there's not a specific.
Yeah, he doesn't have like I can't be like, oh, he likes cars. Like now. I know he likes excavators, and so like we bought him a few of those. Yeah. And then before that, what was it? Anything with music, anything that plays music.
I was gonna say, I feel like Ayden really likes a good song.
Yeah, he loves music, so we got him a bunch of those, and he's actually been like yesterday. He sang. I don't know. He can learn the melody and the words to all those little songs on all his little toys quick.
Wow,
like,
that's cool.
He had like a little boombox, and yesterday he brought it to me. He was playing it, and I know he's heard it before because he's had the toy for a long time. But he just like pressed it a couple of times, and then he was singing it. And
wow!
Like, okay, now like I said, now he's starting to get into stuff. I know he likes singing, so that helps. Like even with us trying to start doing potty training, I'm like, I need you to start like. Talking so we can start doing that. Yeah. But it's crazy to watch it. like even just watching y'all, like when I would come in the room with y'all, it's just crazy to watch. Can you talk about some of the goals that you set for Ayden?
Yes. So as far as my expressive language goals, my goal was for him to use 2 words at a time, and I had them for different social contexts. So I had for him to request a certain object, so maybe like pink pig if he wanted that. I had it, I think, for him to indicate termination, so all done with an object.
One of his favorites.
Yeah. And then I think I had one for him to request reoccurrence, so like I want more. And then back to the one with the requesting activity or things. Help is always like, help me, need help was always a big one for him too. I just want whatever situation a kiddo's in, I want them to be able to ask help. That's one of the first words I teach them, because you don't know, like there's so many things that goes on in the world and you want a kid to be able to say help.
Right.
So that was his expressive language goals. As far as receptive, we would a lot of times look at a picture book together, and I would kind of label them first, and then I would say, like, where's pig, and have him point to the pig, where there's a lot of different options there for him to choose from. So we'd kind of start off with a smaller field with maybe only 2 or 3 characters, and we'd work our way up to bigger ones. And now the following directions with locating objects. So just, where are your shoes? Trying to find your shoes. And so I have those goals set, but then my job is to provide the level of cueing. So I have a child doing it independently, that's all by themselves, and then me doing minimum cueing, so that would be me maybe giving a verbal prompt or just a visual, me doing moderate cueing, so that would be me giving them 2 prompts, and then maximum cueing, so 3 prompts. So I kind of would try to keep track of how many prompts I was giving him while we were doing the goal, with the ultimate goal being he's moved all the way down to independent, and I'm not having to give him the cues, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. With I guess with Ayden specifically and his goals, like, or just in general, I guess also, if you have certain goals for a child, and like you had like the pink pig and whatever, and then you also had like help. And you have more. Like if they're hitting 2 and like they're struggling to hit 1, what is your next step for that? Because I know Ayden, he doesn't do help. I know when he needs help, because he's very good at coming to get mommy and daddy. So we've never really had an issue with help. Ayden also like reads people very well, so
he does.
He won't go to somebody if he even feels intimidated. So I've never been very concerned about him learning help, because I know for a fact if he's not feeling the person, he's gonna cry.
Right. Yes.
But if those are the goals that you have for a child, like, if they're hitting like 2 out of 3, are you okay passing by the 3rd one, or are you trying to make sure they hit that one too?
So I review goals every 3 months and kind of see where we're at, what our abilities are, and so I probably would like a child at some point to be able to say the word help, need help, but I can always bring the goal down, instead of like it being verbal, maybe sign language, sign for help. It seems like he's telling you with his body language he needs help, not necessarily his words. But yeah, I look at goals every 3 months, and then I adjust based off of what they're doing, what we're seeing, what the parent wants, what the parent sees, if that kind of makes sense, if that answers the question.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I think you said that your goals, you base them off of the eval, and then also what the parents want you to help them with. Cool. Well, that's all I really have as far as like specific speech therapy stuff. I think the only other thing I wanted you to be able to like tell parents, just try to give them like an ease of like going into like therapy, if they even have like a twinge of a thought that their child might need it. I know now you don't necessarily need referrals anymore. Well, no, you do, but like I know at one point in time you couldn't even call like a therapist. They had to have the paper first. And I know when I called y'all was like, well, just have the doctor send it. If they said fine. But at one point in time, I feel like you had to go through the doctor first, and it was like, don't call us, we'll call you once we get the papers.
Yes. Now there is an option for out-of-pay costs, and a lot of times with those we don't need a doctor's referral. That's kind of a way out of it, like a kind of behind the door way. But yes, you're so right. If there's any like concern or thought in your head where you're not sure, especially like if your child's in daycare or you see him with other friends and you're like, this isn't quite lining up. I'm seeing this 2-year-old doing this, but my 2-year-old isn't. I think being proactive is just so important, because you don't want that gap getting bigger and bigger and bigger where we could have closed it early on. And when we're young, we have different pathways in our brain, and they will work faster and form new connections faster than when we're older. Neuroplasticity. So I would go ahead and go in while you're early, or while they're young and their brain is plastic, and so they can go ahead and learn all those things quickly, is what I would say.
That makes sense. I know, I always tell people the same thing, just get the eval done. And at the end of the day, even if you get the eval and they say they definitely need it, it's still up to you, you know, if you want to bring your child in to do the thing.
Yes.
Like I said, I didn't think Ayden needed occupational therapy, but it didn't hurt to get the eval.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how would you, like, I guess, ease a parent's like worries about like even doing the eval?
I would just say, you know, just go ahead and do it. In that all kiddos have strengths and weaknesses at the end of the day. All adults have strengths and weaknesses. And so going in, your clinician will be able to help show you what those strengths and weaknesses are. And I think the goal for everybody is to make those weaknesses better. Gotcha. And so, you know, we can provide tips even if the child only has a few things and doesn't quite qualify because of a score. I think it's always the clinician's duty to provide strategies or things for the parent, so they can incorporate it into the home.
That's another thing I was worried about, that he wouldn't score enough, because even when he did the eval at the other place, she was like, oh, he just kind of made it in to need it. And when we came here, same thing. I think I had, like, because I had already done an eval, I had like more of an understanding of the questions. But yeah, she was like, he just scored low enough to need expressive language. He definitely needed receptive, because clearly he still needs it. But she was like, he just got in there for that. So I was like, I was worried about them saying he didn't need it, because I knew he needed speech therapy. And then when we found out he needed the tubes, I was like, well, of course that's why. And like you said, once he got them, I think he got them like a month after we started here. And then
like, boom.
Things have gone, gone crazy. Like, he came out of it, and I think I said his name, and he turned, and I was like, oh, this is clearly what it was. So I guess what is, like, trying to think how to word it, but what is like the number one weakness, that a more common weakness that you think can like be prevented with like speech therapy?
Okay, I feel like the most common weakness now would be not using enough words. I think in the day and time of COVID, I think these babies that were born during COVID in isolation, they did not get a lot of exposure to other kiddos because we were all isolating, and parents might not have been modeling language or had been educated on how to model language. And so I think that would be the biggest weakness, oh my goodness, that I see now, especially with my population, is just especially coming in at 2 and not saying those 2 words. I get that all the time, and I really think COVID really impacts it.
Yeah, I can see that. I think even if Ayden could like hear us for real, I think me personally, with him being our first child, I think that was another like thing that I had to like get over. It was like doing everything for him. So it's like I'm like trying to stay ahead of like making sure he needed stuff, so he didn't have to ask he didn't have to ask for milk, he didn't have to ask for food, because I was like on top of it. And I think that also holds your child back.
That's true.
Like, stay ahead of things instead of like,
you're so right, trying to have the child communicate to you without you proactively doing it for them.
I think that also like speech therapy helped me with that, because it was like, you know, he was telling me to let him like tell me things and look for these cues, and just having him like say things or helping him say things, and I'm like, I can't have him say the thing if he doesn't need the thing.
Right.
So it's like I had to like step back a bit, but I do get that like COVID. I think COVID had like a lot to do with a lot.
Yes, and then I feel like the masks. There's so much research about it muffling speech sounds, and so little kiddos having problems with articulation because the sounds are muffled. And just seeing your face is a huge cue as to how your mouth is moving and what you're saying. And when you take it away, that's really hard, especially for a kiddo who's trying to learn how to speak.
Yeah, I think even like Miss Rachel, she said something about that, is that the reason why she does the close-ups on her mouth so you can see how the mouth moves with certain words is because of COVID.
Yes.
And all the masking, you can't really, like I know I have problems hearing people with the mask on.
Yes.
So yeah, that does make sense. I guess I hadn't even thought about that until now. So I know Ayden only comes once a week. Do you have kids that come more often, and how do you determine?
I do. The most I'll see a kiddo is 2 times a week, and so I'll determine based off of their score. And so I have a bell curve that I'll look at when I score somebody, and so you have average, and then you have the first standard deviation below the mean, and the second. If they're anywhere between the second standard deviation or like 1.5 is normally when I'll have them come twice, just because I don't want them to continue to keep getting lower and lower. I want us to get closer to average, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I'll determine it, is their score and just what their needs are. If I feel like they need it twice a week and that their parents receptive to that and has transportation, then that's normally my recommendation.
Gotcha. Well, that's all I have for real this
all
time.
Right.
Do you have any or any things that you wish that you could just tell parents about speech therapy in general?
Yeah. I just think it's so important to model language for your child at the end of the day. That would be my take home, just when you're driving down the road, sky, sun, just talking to your child. I think that's the biggest thing to do and to help them with their language. And speech therapists are always here to help when we're not aligning quite with what the average range would be, and we're happy to give strategies and tips. So yeah.
Any suggestions for people that are just like, no, I'm not taking my child to speech therapy?
I would just say, do your own research and make your decision for yourself. But there is a lot of research and evidence-based that speech therapy works, and that it is needed. You need a professional to provide intervention designed specifically for your child to help them learn and grow in their areas of weakness.
Yeah, I think it also helps seeing somebody they don't know doing things too. Because for some reason I feel like with Ayden, or children in general, when you see somebody your parents doing something, it can be intimidating. Or I feel like sometimes when kids see other kids doing a thing, it's easier for them to be like, oh, I can do that. Because they're the same size, the children around you are the same age, so it's like I know we've moved kids up and they weren't walking into a class with walking kids, and they start walking. So they see other kids that's doing things and they model it or do it.
Yes.
And I think sometimes I was so proactive with doing speech therapy and physical therapy, because I'm I think him learning it from somebody that they don't see as a teacher, your parents are who you learn from. But if you see somebody else trying to get you to do a thing that you don't necessarily know.
Yes. And going off what you were saying about other kiddos seeing other people they don't know, the walking example, I have had so many children come in not saying very many words. I recommend the child go to at least a half-day daycare, just twice a week, just so they can get exposure to other kiddos, because mom stays home with them all day. They will speak so quickly after that because they're hearing the other kids. I've just seen that's been a huge one where I've been wow, we needed the other kid interaction. We needed to hear them talking for us to do it too.
I was one of those two people too, because Ayden didn't go to daycare until 9 months. That's when I started working again. But just seeing him interact with the other kids, and and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, he needs to be in daycare. And just being around the other kids and learning from that, and then just him talking and stuff now. And then I did like a episode on daycares where I was like, that helps. It's just like learning from the other children. It could be a pro or a con because kids learn different things,
right,
and stuff. But it does help, and just him coming here has been like, I was like, I think you understand him more than I do sometimes.
Oh no,
definitely, because you'll come out and you'll be telling me stuff, and I'll be like, oh, I'm not sure I think he does stuff here that he doesn't do at home. For one, that's definitely.
I do, yeah.
But then also like, you'll come out and tell me something he said or something. I'm like, maybe he has said that to me, and I just didn't like get it. Because, well, I'll show you this video. Last night he was just singing his life away.
Oh,
I had no idea what
I
he was
love
saying. No idea what he was saying, but he was just saying, and I'm like, it had to come,
Yeah, he heard it, yeah.
So, but yeah, that's all I have for real this time. If you want to, like, do some cold pediatric promo.
Okay, we are Cole Pediatric and Cary. We have plenty availability, and we would love to serve your kiddos.
And y'all Monday through Friday.
Yes, we're Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Speech therapy, occupational therapy, feeding therapy, and hopefully soon we'll have physical therapy at some point. But yeah.
Then I know Mia comes to our school. Do you go to?
Yes, I come to Grove as well. Our goal in 2024 is to try and move more out of the daycares and people come more into us. But right now we do have a few daycares that we go to.
Are there any pros and cons to that? Since y'all are trying to get more people to come here instead of doing it at the school?
Yes. The big pro, I think, with coming into the clinic is the parent involvement. It's a lot harder when we're at daycare. We'll try to give you verbal, written information, and it can just be hard. We don't necessarily know what's happening at home, but what's good about coming here is I can always say, hey, how's it going at home?
Right.
And provide info that way. So that's probably the biggest. And we only normally see a kiddo 30 minutes at a time, once or twice a week. So the biggest teacher and stuff is the parent. And if they're able to take the skills we tell them to do and do it at home, your child's going to grow so much more, as opposed to if it was just us, the parent didn't really know what we were doing. Yeah. And there wasn't much carryover.
That's the main reason I wanted to bring him here, so I could like talk to you every time we go.
Yes.
And then I also had this fear that like in the beginning he wouldn't like go with you. Like I felt like you would come to this class to get him, and because I think there's another place that actually went and did the eval there, and I meant to ask them if he went with them and he was okay, but I didn't think that he would be okay going with like somebody
a stranger
before, or he would like participate and stuff. So I was like, no, we'll start. And now I know if he saw you at the door, he'd be super excited. But in the beginning, I was like, I don't know about that. And plus, because he doesn't go to the daycare I work at, so I wouldn't be able to like see. So yeah, that's good tips though, because I never. Like, I know y'all have where you can come in, but I never understood what, like, the difference was. I always thought it was, like, if you go to the school, do you have, like, the things you need to, like, teach them certain things and stuff like that?
Most of the time, we try to carry most of the things we have, and we think that they'll work. The good thing about a lot of the daycares is they'll have a room for us to go in, and we can kind of use some of their toys. But it is a lot easier to know my materials that are in my cabinet and the things the child does and doesn't like, as opposed to trying to carry everything I have in one bag.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, so that's all I have. This is Kelsey from Cole Pediatric Therapy in Cary, North Carolina. I will put the little blurb up where they're located and stuff like that. But thank you for letting me interview you.
Thank you
for speech therapying my son. But yeah, this is who I'm always talking about when I do my weekly recaps about Ayden and speech therapy. So if you're in the area, the RDU area, and you're looking for a therapist, check out Pediatric. So until next time, you guys, peace out.